And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Shanny, soul traveler and spiritual practitioner who founded Healing Elements after her spiritual awakening in 2016. She had a shared death-like experience with her father and even saw his light body leave his soul, which we're going to talk about today. Shanny, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I really humbly appreciate what you do, and I'm really grateful to be here.
All right, I guess we should either start on the day that it happened or maybe the day before when you had a lucid dream about his passing.
It's actually, he had what's called terminal lucidity that I witnessed, which means something that perhaps the person could not any longer do, move in his case. And, he was paralyzed, a hemiplegic. We witnessed something that the doctor witnessed as well and said, pretty much that it is impossible, or what I consider to be, a divine miracle and something that is closely tied into, the great beyond. So yes, the day before, we'll start there. He had a stroke in 2005. And so for 7 years, he was, disabled, but, still apart, very healthy, etc. And so in 2011, on my birthday, it was March 14th, and he went in for just an upper respiratory infection. And we were told that day that he actually would pass very soon, like within a couple of weeks, because he had, late stage lung cancer. And so he went into hospice right away. And so on the 26th, he actually passed. And the 25th would be the day in which, again, he for 7 years could not, even with extensive occupational and physical therapy, he was hemiplegic, meaning he was paralyzed if you draw a line straight down your body on one side. And so he was not able to transfer. That means, getting up and into a wheelchair on his own, and all that. He definitely also had brain damage due to it, like apraxia and aphasia, which affects the way you can communicate. And so he could not speak or write or anything like that. And so, it was pretty dramatic when he was in hospice. It was at the time I wasn't, meditating. I wasn't really involved in any kind of regular church or spiritual, practice or anything like that. And so, I had a lot of anxiety, and throughout the week leading up to it, from my birthday to the 25th, I just had gone through the motions as somebody would that perhaps is not really tied into spirit, believes. Of course, I've always believed in the afterlife and all that, but very shocked, very traumatized. We're all best friends. I'm an only child, my mom and I. And so this was very, very, very shocking because it was announced to us right away. And so on the 25th, he, was being joined by, he's a large family, but they're from the South. And so he has 7 siblings, and most of which came out. And so he's only the only boy. So he had his sisters, my aunts, around his bedside, and me and him are just very, very close. We've always been really tied into each other as far as emotionally being able to read each other. Tough guy. He's wonderful, played the guitar and a hippie, but so I was always, not by force, but just naturally right by his face and holding his hand, and this was the 25th. And so, of course, it was getting to be his final hours, the next day, the 26th. And so if you've ever been with somebody, he was incredibly comatose, not in a coma, but comatose, going through the last stages. And so he was even more weak than he normally would with the, hemiplegia and all that. And so we're all around the bedside, me by, his side. And there was one chair, ironically, that was empty. And so not only did the doctor came in, and it was kind of cool that the doctor, which rarely when you're in hospice, they know what's going on. And so they rarely come in themselves, just to, I guess, get pain management, taking care of things like that. So it was really neat that the doctor had walked in, just all divinely worked out. And my father sat straight up, which he has not been able to do in the previous 7 years. He sat straight up with his eyes so alert. It looked like I was seeing him as a little girl when he was like 30. He sat straight up with no help. He then, and I have the chills every time I think of it or tell it, he lifted the whole arm that was paralyzed for 7 years. Neurologically, the doctor said it was impossible after when we talked. He lifted his arm just so fast and strong and pointed at the only place in the room, the empty chair, that there was nobody there. And instantly, that is when what I call a near shared death experience started to occurring because I had a definite direct telepathic connection right away, almost energetically in his voice. It's hard to describe how I channel now or what it was, but it is a definite intuitive, energetic voice signal sent from one person to me. And so when he sat up abruptly and pointed at the empty chair, he instantly looked at me. He knew probably I was the only one. He has a lot of, kind of couldn't handle it. They were crying in the corners and things. My aunts, his sisters, and my mom, it was really tough for her. So he looked right at me, and just with big eyes, I felt the telepathic message come through. There's my mom. And so that is, of course, not something that can be proved. The doctor can prove that it was, neurologically supposedly impossible or pretty tremendously amazing. But that experience was, of course, just something I can verify. But that is what really started off a whole series of divine, at the time unexplained. Now I understand what it is. It is gifts I think we all have. And it just, went from there. The next day was pretty amazing when he was passing. I just felt a calm come over me. Before he actually passed, I was able to sing a song that I've now memorized and know, but at the time I had not heard, maybe once or twice, if you want to say subconsciously, like in a store and you hear it, but it was country. I love country, but my dad was that kind of fan. I'm more into like pop and rap and old rock and roll. So I would not have known this song. That was pretty amazing. It's If You Get There Before I Do. And so if you look at it by Colin Ray, it has significance to the experience that I was going through. And so I felt that interesting. And then I verified, of course, after the death and all the trauma, my mom said he did like that. He loved that song. And so it was just intriguing. There's about, so much more that I could say into that. But my dad was not a believer. He was one of those very rebellious, like people who's just, I'm an atheist, this kind of thing. He wasn't spiritually into anything. And so I was given the choice to do what I wanted. And so my grandma introduced me a little bit to the Christian church. However, I had not at that point read anything biblical. And so I just truly, at the moment of his actual passing, I started, which I verified, I looked at the Bible after, I started reciting these beautiful, Bible verses that I had not known. It was absolutely divine. And I think that it's just something that got larger and bigger with other things attached to what I could do after that point. And the most amazing thing, of course, in just something comforting to me and beautiful was the moment after, a lot of people say the same thing. I agree. It's as if they are not there anymore. I saw him, the essence of him, his soul, whatever words you want to interchange, right when he took his last breath. It's kind of like this gasp. I saw what would be considered like not a mist, it's opaque. And it's a very strange comparison, but I wanted to know if you've seen the movie Predator, like the 80s movie, and he has this camouflage. It's like almost see-through, but digital, a little bit like rainbow. And it's lighter shade than that, if that makes sense. But I saw that, a silhouette of a person, not too much definition with arms and legs, but my dad and I could feel it. I could feel him rise, and he shot straight up from his body, his core. It wasn't the crown of his head. A lot of people say the crown, but it was the core here. And it shot up almost like as if you're jumping on a trampoline and you're springing upward. So, that's what just completely blew my mind, all of that combined, especially fascinated still to this day with how much something like that can change the way that you grieve or just give you confidence, the terminal lucidity, the way that I saw something that was definitely something my father had tried to do. He had tried with physical therapy, occupational therapy, so I do not believe that was anything to do with the brain. I think that it was something to do with consciousness and his ability he was passing, he was one foot in the other realm. And like they say, his mom, I believe in my heart and soul, came to take him to the other side. So that's the shared death experience story.
Well, thank you for sharing the experience, and it was amazing.
Yes.
After he passed and you saw his spirit leave, did that change you in any way?
It did, but I had a sort of delay. I went back into my ego mindset or human condition, and it took me a while because of the things that started rapidly occurring. For instance, 2 nights after that, I had a dream that was a very random dream, but it was just about, my husband's uncle and him in the living room. And then I experienced that exactly. And it was happening to me repetitively. Other experiences, psychic phenomena where I'd say to somebody in the grocery store, like mediumship, I'm wondering if you know someone named Joanne, and then I'd help them. And so for whatever reason, and I know now it is fear-based, I was pushing it away. And so what I did is, and I speak on this on my YouTube channel, I'm very open now. It takes me, a work in progress to get my heart out, but I suppressed it with going to, my doctor and telling them, oh, woe is me, I need something, medication. So, I got addicted to Xanax. It's like a Valium type biodiazepine, or I think that's what it is. But it's very, very, in my opinion, great for, a short burst maybe for somebody. But I think for me, who was going through my own journey and grieving, and also experiencing phenomena that I knew existed, but just came on so strong, a spiritual acceleration of sorts, that I was fearful and also grieving and also working full time as a substitute. And so commuting also like 2.5 hours there and back. And so I feel like all of this made me make the, irresponsible decision to cope in an unhealthy way. And so I would drink, I got, never had drank in my life, maybe once a year or something, got into drinking the wine too. So I would come home from work thinking that it's prestigious to make dinner and take a Xanax and drink a wine. So it turned into a situation in which that right there, I know spiritually and also just logically, that will block a lot of things that can come through with your divine gifts and the way that you're able to perceive. So I was dumbing down that, pushing it away. And then I got completely sober. I started sobriety after a huge, starting healing elements. However, I did not make it complete until 2018. So 2018, I got sober and really have, I think, accelerated and been able to study and grieve and do shadow work and realize that there's trauma, and that, that healthy way of coping is the way to go. And so, after that, it completely, changed my life in that way, because it brought out something in me that, I didn't think could occur. I was humble enough and I accepted people's addictions or things like that, but I never thought that I would affect people negatively in the way that I did, and my family, et cetera, myself. And I think that you can't go back, no, woulda, shoulda, coulda, like I tell all my private clients, but, I did waste a lot of years that I could have been healing myself and healing others and taking classes, and instead of, just completely ignoring all of that, because now I just love the gift so much and love the way that I'm able to give people messages. It really, really, truly gives me more of a high than anything, or more of a relaxation or contentment. I found that that was what I was missing and searching for. And so it changed my life. And it also, again, before, 2016, I would try to push it away, really dumbing it down, but it changed my life. And I was able to start to slowly use it as I formed healing elements in the right direction. So I would enjoy dreams and, completely spiritual transcendental experiences. Like I speak on my YouTube channel about having a dream for 40 days. It's 40 days and 40 nights of the, entity people call Jesus Christ. And so I was, able to not push that aside in getting sober. Of course, that's logical. It fell into place. So it changed my life in so many ways. Of course, just losing somebody like that and having to see other people, most importantly, my mom, she was high school sweethearts with them, best friends, cutest couple ever. It was already hard on her because the stroke, and him not talking. And so the death, I had to, help her through some serious, suicidal ideation points in her journey after his passing and things of that nature. So it definitely changed me. And instead of, I know a lot of people find it hard to look at tragedy and put it into blessings in disguise, but I truly do. And I would not wish anybody, I wouldn't wish myself to lose my father. However, I see how life is just beautifully, divinely aligned, that no matter what, even if you go through something, a hardship of that nature that is so meaningful and tragic, and it just is really something that you'll spend the rest of your life grieving or having a loss from. I can see now in retrospect, of course, and sober, the gifts that I've been able to carry on and his legacy. And I feel like we had a great relationship, but I feel like it's so neat once I've let go and I'm sober, I can have a better relationship with him spiritually. I really, truly do. He helps me all the time. And it's just, you can feel the spirit. So it's a beautiful thing.
Now, he passed in 2014.
2011.
Okay. What is the spiritual awakening that you had in 2016?
Oh my gosh. That was just immense. So this would be something that came on all of a sudden, and I had to recognize it by gathering information. And I always say to people that I speak to and connect with that thank God for now that I know the internet is used for ill purposes sometimes, but thank God I had the search when I was at work Googling, what is this? Of course, the numbers started to show up, 1111, precognitive dreams of a very deep, meaningful message. I mean, so much more infiltration of everything going through the woods, just like Eckhart Tolle says. I mean, feeling the universe in a very different way. And it wasn't superficial. I was not a superficial person, but I posted the selfies all the time, and I did that kind of thing that people would say, oh, you like yourself a lot or whatnot. And I would say, no, I'm just a free, happy person. But in this moment, I'm still myself. I still like to do the makeup or whatnot. But I don't truly, honestly care about the petty gossip. I had to withdraw from so much, and it just all encompassing what people talk about of a spiritual awakening was happening to me all at once. So thank God for the internet, for me to Google and watch other people's testimonials and know that this is something profound. And you're withdrawing away from things that maybe affect you negatively. You're finding out what shadow work is. I was absolutely saturated with thoughts that were of the helping nature, of helping people, of the world, of myself. And before, it was not like that. It was, when is Game of Thrones on? And how about you want to go out to lunch to my coworker? And is my kid, doing good in the play? It was beautiful because I love that part of me. And that is still part of me. But I started to get an overall, obsession with things of the nature that I always have had, maybe like saving the whales, things like that. But it was coming on so profoundly strong. And so, I checked into, I'm very, very spiritual. I'm a Pisces, but astrology is not everything, but I have a very analytical type chart of Capricorn moon. And I just feel like I fought that right there too, not with unhealthy coping, but I went to my doctor of 22 years. I had him send me to a therapist. I had them do I'm serious, like an MRI. I wanted to know, hey, am I losing it because of this grief process? And I went sober, what's happening? And so, no, I got checked out, and they're like, the only thing you have is you're doing great, your anxiety disorder, because I've always been very excitable. And so, controlling that pretty well now, I would say, for sure, and giving advice to others on how to do that. But, that whole experience was just suddenly, there was no spark. I didn't go to pray at a monastery or anything like that. It just came on, but it came on strong, and it was obvious.
I believe earlier you said that you saw Jesus in a dream every day for 30 or 40 days.
Yes, that I just recently decided to open up about on my channel, because I know not only my relatives, my different sides of my family that may or may not advocate for what I do as a living right now. It could be controversial because of the things that he told me. So we'll start by saying this was 2016, part of that big spiritual accelerated awakening. So I was dumbfounded because I had the first day, it was 40 days in a row. The first day I had the dream, it was so crystal clear, kind of like some of your guests talk about with the near-death experience. It was very much different than a dream, and it was longer, and I could remember every single part of it, which is definitely not something I've done before or after. Every single fragmented part and what he said. And so basically it took me, to figure out what was going on a couple of days. So I would have a dream, and I've never had this happen before either, before or after. It continued almost like you're reading a book and you just pick up from where you left off. So it stunned me. That was part of some of the things that were coming and happening to me that just shocked me. It was beautiful energy. I definitely cannot describe the overall love truly. And it was so overpowering. It was just apparent to me. It was also ironically communicated telepathically. In the dream, there is no sound, but I am exchanging messages and getting messages of overall love. And the message was that I alluded to, maybe a little controversial, is that one of the first things he showed me is he goes, and it's real funny, to me, the relationship I have and had with him, it's like he's jovial, he's your partner, really funny, really energetic. And maybe that's because he's relating, maybe consciousness is relating to you, what you are like, but it was just something of comfortability, of love. And he was saying, you know what, girl, like in that way, but telepathically, in this energetically, exclusively kind of understanding, and a way of equality, almost as if like, you're in good company, I will nurture you no matter what you do, that kind of thing. And so he was like, you know what, girl, you're right. Here are all my friends. And so he showed people that looked to me, without studying it at that time, like a Buddha. He showed me people who looked like a gentleman with like a turban. He showed me people that looked like, I would assume, now looking back at it, Hindu gods. It's just, he was basically showing me many, many things throughout, so many things throughout the 40 days that were, a message of acceptance, and that everybody, this is the message, everybody comes here. Everybody ends up with me. This is what gets controversial to my family, that you do not have to know me, because some people never know me. He was saying you're right, because I used to wonder, what about the children that are in the middle of nowhere and they know no religion, and these children just pass. I know they go to heaven. This was way before 2011, just as a little girl growing up. My heart would tell me that these certain religious groups have to be mistaken in some way, because I felt that children that was then. I feel everybody now. My truth is that everybody does go to the great beyond, and he will be there. That's my belief. But he was basically, I think I needed that at that point to be confident to go on, just because I needed to get that programming, in my opinion, and dogma of, you have to believe a certain way, and this won't happen if ABC, due to different religious, sectors, I guess, out there, and not just Christianity. And so this was a beautiful, beautiful message. It was all about just, look, I all kind of cool things. We were in it looked like the Grand Canyon. It was odd. It was, to me, I believe, he was showing me the time period in which he was alive on Earth. And so we were up at the ridge of a canyon. And I see it now, just like your near-death experience would say, as if it's crystal clear, every single fragmented part. And we were up on there, on the rim of the canyon. And that was about the first 4 to 5 days. And he's just relaying information and letting me know this vibe, and just beautiful. To me, this is how he appeared. He appeared typically kind of what he does look like in most depictions, but more of a 1970s hippie or something. I don't know. It was just more down to earth. The clothes looked obviously linen that were a little bit worn. It was white robe, with a rope, and typical type of just uncut hair, and beautiful to me. The eyes, I always say I believe that the color is blue, but I do believe when I looked at his eyes, when I go back in my memory, that it wasn't so much a color because they flashed from hazel to brown. It was the way that, as they say, you saw the window to the soul. It was profound. I get chills when I think of the feeling I got in this dream so many days in a row, and never since. That was just that was what I was given, and I appreciate that. So it was profound. There's so much more I can say, but yeah, it was amazing.
Did you mention earlier that you are psychic?
Yes, I have been, definitely have been. I've been known as a child to tell things to my mom, my aunt, things like that, of course, that were of psychic nature. Definitely, an example would be meeting my neighbor about a year ago. So we met in the courtyard, and she asked me what I do, and I told her. And she says, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for a message from my mom. She passed a year back. And so she said, if you get one, let me know. And right then, I call them downloads. Something was channeled in me, and I used to not trust it, and I would hold back, but that prevented people from getting the messages and me from releasing this energy. And so I told her, I see the strangest thing in my mind's eye, but I see from the Beauty and the Beast, this glass case with a rose that is, the petals are falling. She starts crying, and she leads me upstairs to her apartment. And there is the replica of the Beauty and the Beast glass with the rose, and her mom's name is Rose. So it's like, that's just an example, but yes, I'm very psychic. Like, for instance, during the COVID thing, when the kids were home having to do the Zoom school, I just, and this is regular now, the telepathic thing that I told you about with my dad, who I just heard it in an energetic way. My daughter is born near his birthday. She's Scorpio. She's my little mini me, no favorites, love all three of my kids, but she's the one, my youngest, who just truly has a spiritual soul tie connection where she understands me better. My excitable, very fascinated with spirit self, right? She's more that of my household of 5. And so she was walking by me and, I had just meditated in the void. And that's typically where a lot of very strong messages will come. She walked by me and I read her mind. I'm like, Deanna Marguerite, I said, are you wanting to stop eating cereal because you were wondering about the fat calories and stuff in it? And that's so off the topic for her. She's not even into that kind of stuff. She's very fit, whatever, you know what I mean? And she stops and she's like, yes, I was just thinking that. So those kind of things that will occur naturally, or when I do give readings, I do intuitively guided card readings. I have like over 60 decks of oracle cards. I know people sometimes think that's taboo, but I think it's just a platform to get the client or the person who I'm connecting with as friends, the messages that they can even reflect on some of the messages that are great within the cards. So yes, I use that gift as well to, do things for private readings. And I do believe that I practice vibrational medicine. I do believe you have to tune into the same space as being precognitive or, having ESP, psychically aware, when I do the healing. But I think it's a different ballgame. I think that anybody could learn to do what I think is the most blessed holistic gift, is to take energy from, the air, so to speak, or whatnot, from the area around you, from the, the field, and transfer it into yourself or someone else. So I would consider myself psychic, yeah.
Do you think a lot of people have psychic abilities and they don't understand them and they wind up getting on alcohol or drugs or medication?
100%. And that's something that I want to speak more about. I feel that, of course, there are diagnoses that I'm going to respect, but I feel that, yes, that is so prevalent that people do not understand and may think that they're out of the norm and they go seeking something to cure what is actually a divine gift. My brother-in-law, there are people who, have things diagnosed like bipolar or a mental health condition. And again, I respect any diagnosis. However, I do think that people like Mary Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's wife, where they wanted to put her up into an insane asylum because she was mourning her son and said she saw spirits. Now looking back, there are so many people over history that I think truly, just as you eloquently said, are looking for the ability to mask these gifts because they think it's either, taboo, or they don't understand it. As you said, they don't understand it, or they have been, to be honest with you, told by either the, society around them, their community, or a religion that this is impossible and that something's wrong with them. So I find it to be so beneficial. And I really do take time to thank God every day that it is something that we're not persecuted and killed for, because even Bruno was burned on the stake for talking about the earth rotating, around the sun. And so absolutely, I feel as if that is so huge. And I'm glad to see more and more people kind of stepping out and saying, hey, into the spiritual community. And the internet, again, I'll give a plug to the internet for giving these people, including myself, a platform and a space to be validated and to find out that, yeah, okay, maybe this inner turmoil and stress was not just related to something medically. Maybe it is all intertwined, medical, spiritual, and, your brain, your physical, everything I think will affect the other, of course. Right. And so I think, of course, if we're suppressing as I did, you're not not going to be like me, but you may turn to pharmaceuticals or going to doctor after doctor, when truly there may be a spiritual mentor out there who could not only validate what you're experiencing, give you the tools, and you can see it in real time. You can be healed by, the beautiful bowls. You can sound healing. You can be changed, I think, more than I ever was helped with Xanax, with meditation. It's amazing. Like the transcendental experiences can be really healing. So I do believe that 100%.
Did you ever have any further contact with your father after he passed?
Not so much an after death contact where you will see the apparition. No, I never had that. However, once I, again, got to the point where I was coping healthy without substance to dumb it down, and I was able to talk to mentors, spiritual mentors, Dolores, I worked with her for a year, that could coach me into relaxing into a state to receive. Boy, does it just multiply every day. I literally, he's a guardian angel. You can label it whatever you want. One of my spirit guides, whatever you would like to say. He is there with me anytime that I call upon him, even times where I'm just watching the football game and there, his presence will energetically imprint, I call it, onto my heart space. And I absolutely. It's the intent that I've now, learned to work with. When I channel, ask my spirit guides, plural, things, if I tell my dad and I use my dad kind of for very important things, maybe something even that I'm wanting to get a job or something of that nature, I will send out the intent to the spirit and definitely will get his energy, just like that time, the telepathic exchange. I will get the answer, and he is 100% spirit to me, not over someone's predictions. I don't really do predictive astrology or readings. I think for the insight and the morals and the, intuitively guided compass that is leading you to where you need to be, 100% right. My dad's spirit and advice and the spirit guides, things even that I didn't know because, life is crazy. So when the kids, and my husband got the COVID in September, my daughter, she was pretty bad, near fatal. She went to the hospital and had to get the little antibody, like Regeneron thing. She's 23, had, definite, the only child that ever had childhood asthma. So she was afflicted so bad. And at one point, I'm doing the praying and the meditating, and I'm definitely using my healing over Alyssa, my daughter. I thought about it. I'm like, oh, I'm so worked up into this. Why don't I deliberately send out intent, for my father's comfort and advice? And as soon as I did that, I heard loud as day the message that ended up, it's bad, but she'll be okay. So that very day she asked me, which she is terrified of hospitals, Mom, it's bad. She said that word, it's bad. I need to go to the hospital. So she went in there, and thank God she came out and recovered with, again, the antibody. But that kind of thing, that's a very light scenario. There's other things that have to do with, other people passing. For instance, we lost my father-in-law just less than like 6 months ago. And so I was able to know something was coming because his presence was constantly, I see like a vision in my mind's eye, but it'll be up to a specific side. So I saw my father, who's passed, and also who is not related to this person, my husband's grandmother. So, I thought, the presence was just kind of stuck, and I wish I could explain it more eloquently. It's tough when you try to transfer things into, like, from light language into English, I guess I could say. But so I knew something was coming. So yes, his presence is always contacting me, because that was his intent to come and stay there to let me know something's coming. So I even asked, my family after a while. It was about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks before this incident went down. So I even said, guys, I don't know. I think maybe there's someone going to pass. I don't know. Maybe it's my grandma. I'm not too sure. And so lo and behold, on that day, I was getting a lot of messages, be strong, be there for them, that kind of thing from my dad. And so my father-in-law had a stroke, and he has, he had a separate second family. So he had daughters who were very young, or I would consider, under 25. One was 18. And so she was calling because it was an emergency situation. He had a stroke. And so I was able to be in a small way more prepared, for that kind of thing. And so that kind of communication, absolutely. Never seen him in, beside like a vision. I've never seen him here tangibly like a spirit.
Have you had any other paranormal or supernatural experiences?
Yes. And I thought about, I'm like, whether it's off the, podcast or not, I wanted to tell you about this. I consider, if you do the UFO experience that I had, to be one of the most life-changing and perspective-changing experiences that I've ever had. And I guess I'm slow. It takes me a long time to work these things out. But I and three other, I'm sorry, I have to cough.
It's okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So when I was 19, which was a long time ago in the late 90s, I still do, in the Bay Area, which is near San Francisco, California, on the coast. And so we were kind of citified city girls. And my best friend and I at the time, Jessica was her name, we decided to go into the middle of, Hick Town, which was Colorado, where my aunt had lived. It's a little tiny town called Mancos, Mancos, and there's no airports near there. So basically they had to drive from Mancos, Colorado, my aunt and my uncle, to the Salt Lake City airport to pick us up. And again, we were citified. We've been everywhere in California. We were after high school. This was after high school. So we were going to go there in the middle of nowhere, see a couple of really neat sites like the Anasazi Indian cliff dwellings. And I'm really always been into history. So I knew there was things like Indian shards of clay pottery just in their backyard, because it's that remote. So we were going to go there and maybe work at the local store. I mean, I do not know how. I think I was guided. I really, truly do think I was guided to this experience, because I look back and I say, what? I was I was enjoying my life and going to, rave parties and all kind of things in the city, and to leave that just to want to go to something that is of that nature. I look back and I kind of question and think now, of course, that I was led there. So, my girlfriend and I, we flew into Salt Lake City, and it was quite a long drive, I think 4 hours to get from where they were picking us up from in Memphis, where they lived, to the Salt Lake City airport. So when they picked us up, the sun was going down. So this was at nighttime. And we were still in, I believe, Utah. And now the strangest thing is my uncle, I saw him, he's going through, bless his heart, he's going through some medical issues, cancer, but we were talking about it, kind of not thinking it was going to be our last time, but what if, so we went on vacation and we're talking about it just about a year ago. And he's the one that was witness to it. It was my aunt in the passenger seat, my uncle driving, my girlfriend Jessica to the right. And, he told me where we happened to see this UFO, which was mountain size, literally, is right next to, and I haven't watched but one episode, this Skinwalker Ranch TV show, like has this area in there. And so if you look on the map and that show, that's where he let me know. He's like, do you believe this? Where we saw, that is right there. And so we are still to this day fascinated. I've done a lot more digging into it, and I can go into that, but we were driving and all of our reactions were terrified. I was 19. My girlfriend was 19. I'm more of a believer than any of these people in the car. Maybe my uncle a little bit. My aunt, skeptic. This one, my best friend, is like, nothing exists that is not tangible. She probably is a physicist right now. It was very odd and cool and validating to me that we had 4 different perspectives. And this is what happened. I mean, just all of a sudden we're driving, there's a field to our right and a mountain, like range in the distance. And over the top of the mountain, which was as big as, I always say, if you look at a football coliseum, like we have Candlestick Park that used to be out here, that's what I compared it to at the time. Humongous, this completely oval, or, just a saucer, a disc that was immense. And I thought, of course, dramatic. I thought, okay, the world's ending. Nobody has ever on earth seen this thing, because if so, they would call the army and call the, you know what I mean? And so everybody starts to do their own reaction. My uncle is asking all of us and stepping on the gas pedal. Do you see that? Do you effing see that? He's like, barely cusses, but he's going like that. My aunt is hysterical right off the bat. She is mind blown, and she's rolling down the window, in which I was so scared that I was scared quiet, almost when you're a little kid and you don't want to look out the covers in the dark or something. I could not speak. All I did is grab Jessica's thigh and just dig in, and she did the same. And so we were kind of the same thing in the back seat. And so my aunt, and when we got, to this gas station, we were so freaked out after we got to this gas station, everybody's saying, why did you roll down the window? But it's a good thing she did, because I have observations because of that. So she rolls down the window, crying so much and screaming, and we're going faster. And this experience was at least 5 whole minutes where, I mean, all of us said to each other, we thought we were going to die, because this huge spaceship basically was obviously showing itself to us, because it sounds crazy, but it was teleporting. It wasn't zipping here. It was like showing itself to us way far away at the mountain range, and then right up next to our car, not over top of it, but right here in the field. It was just ginormous, where we couldn't even see any background of the field anymore, because there it was in a hair of a half of a second, right? And so the other thing is, it had no noise whatsoever. This enormous thing, because she had the window down as close or as far away, no noise whatsoever, no windows, no doors, no landing gear. It was smooth, as if I describe it to be stone. In between stone and metal is what it looked like when it would come up close. So polished, but not shiny. And it also had something that to this day, I don't know if they are entities itself or if they are little mini vehicles, but on the top, it was not attached, but they were 3 extremely bright white lights. And they first formed a triangle, one here, one here, and one here. And to illuminate, that is how the ship was illuminated to us. It would do that up top. And the reason why we knew it was not attached to the ship is because, amazingly, they would come different directions. So the little spaceship, or the huge spaceship, would be here, and the 3 very smaller than the ship, but very bright, very bright. And we all observed that it was so odd that it was so bright, but we could look into it without anything bothering us, without that little light that's like here, like that stays into your vision where you look around and you have a flash. It wasn't like that. It was very actually easy to look at this, but it was the brightest light I think I've ever seen, to this day. And so it would, so to speak, come away from the large vehicle, and it was amazingly displaying what now I believe are geometrical type of, like a mandala it would look like, or a geometric pretty kind of prism. It would do these light shows. I mean, it was amazing. It would do a light show that you see those kind of fancy fireworks or things like that are laser generated. But it was quicker, faster, interesting, because you could tell it was kind of the tracers, I believe, like the three of them looked like they were working together to make this shape. So that is why we all believed, that it was deliberately trying to show itself to us, because, it's just staying there patiently and having the lights do the show. And I mean, it just sounds like madness, I know, but I hope, and I think that definitely some of the people who listen to this and yourself will believe it, because it just was profound. And so that whole experience lasted, like I said, quite a long time. At least it wasn't a blip or something way far away that we had to question. I mean, this changed all four of our lives, in different ways. Like you said, coping, my aunt didn't cope so well, and she blames that on her addiction, but it, different strokes for different folks, and I pray. But, after that happened, and I should tell you the confirmation that this was, it could be, I guess, from, this world, but the confirmation that it is either from this world and we have amazing capabilities that we don't tell anybody about, the government does, you make the decision, but it definitely shot up into space separately. The big ship left and went we could see it as high as it's going quickly. So it didn't kind of teleport off of here and go up there. That was interesting. It flew, maybe to show us. And the three lights, whatever they were, separately flew up into the night sky. So that was that. And the funniest thing is there was a big rig truck behind us, and my uncle's already freaked out, going, I don't know how many miles per hour, because we were scared. We wanted to get to a gas station because we were convinced that we would call the army or the police, because we had just really seen, that's what you think when you see these things that are real and it's so big. We really thought, okay, call the police. That's what we told the gas station lady. So the big rig truck from behind us passed us on a, it's a 2-lane highway, and he obviously was scared, and my uncle was honking for him like, hey, we have to talk, sir, and he just went right around us as fast as ever. And we were hoping he would be at the gas station, because they're like, these desolate highway roads. And sure enough, no, he wasn't. So we pulled over, and it was like a movie. The girl was like a hick, and she's chewing her gum. And we're like, I'm frantically explaining. We're like, no, you don't understand. Please call the police. There was, a mountain size. And she's all, honey, we hear that every day. And I'm like, what? I'm like, she's all, I've lived here my whole life. I've never seen one. That's what she said. But she said, constantly people like you from California come up here, and and I said, what do you mean? Like right up close and personal? So she said, yes, there is a military base. And I think what you guys are seeing is test vehicles. And I said, well, I mean, again, if I didn't know what I know now with getting regressive therapy and seeing what I apparently saw, I met these beings on the inside, I would go for it. Because for 20 years before I got regressive therapy, I really wanted to believe that for some reason, that induced fear in me for some reason, that it could be extraterrestrials, even though I believed in that. I totally believe that there's, extraterrestrial biological beings, of course. That's just my belief. And so, she's like, well, maybe the military has, so we just chatted to this lady, totally shocked. We were all sober. We just got some coffee and we traveled back. And the other anomaly beside all that is odd. A lot of people say that they miss time. For instance, they will arrive and have like 3 hours gone by, and it seems like 5. Well, ours was the opposite. And my uncle to this day is the most freaked out, because he was a freight forwarder truck driver. So he is very calculated with time and gas and miles per hour. So when we arrived at the house, we thought that the clocks were wrong, because it said that we technically only took like an hour and a half to get from the airport to the house, when it was at least like a 4-hour drive. So we called popcorn, that old like thing you used to call to find out the time. All of us shocked, calling the popcorn, realizing, no, our tickets on our plane flight said we just arrived at this specific time, and there's no possible way to get from the airport to that city in that amount of short time. So I guess we gained time, or they put us back. They put us back on a wrong, hour, is what I assume, because that was real. And then later, I don't know if you want to hear about that part, but later, I'm so glad I did, is I got, after the spiritual awakening, I got professional regress therapy just for missing memories I could have on that night. Because I had a hunch, and it was profound. It wasn't like I haven't really heard any story like this. They were not the typical grays. They were very tall, like 10 to 12 feet, beautiful, what I call looks like angels, as it gave me a feeling of recognition when I was with them. Not so much like I was placed here. I believe that we've all incarnated to different, dimensions and even planets and galaxies. And so I don't know what the correlation, I'm still diving into that, but I do know that the regressive therapy experience was very real. And I got freaked out the first time. I had to go to her 3 times because the first time, even though it was 2017, I had healing elements. I couldn't believe it, that the regressive memory recall was so real. And so when I came into this circular room and I sat down and I seen these 3 beautiful bluish, but almost see-through, but not really, but kind of just glowing, this beautiful light, and tall and loving. And so it was not an experience that I had probably thought in the past abduction would be. It was not medical. It was not invasive. It was telepathic communication, which intrigued me because that is something that I found as, of course, linked with my spiritual experience. So it was telepathic, it was loving, and it was, I'll just say it is the truth. Just as most people that I've kind of watched testimonials will say, they let me know, you're doing good, we love you, you have a mission. So they told me I have a mission. And the interesting thing is when the third regressive therapy, where she had me look left and right to see if anyone was there, if my aunt and uncle and Jessica was there, they were, but it looked like they were catatonic. There's my aunt and uncle kind of with a little grin on their face, like they weren't hurt. They were like this. Maybe if they got some sort of, don't know, like it looked like they were in a very deep meditative state and not present, not listening to, or, part of the telepathic exchange, which is odd. And so, yes, my friend and my 2 relatives in that vision, in that memory recall, were not a participant in the exchange. So who knows if they ever got regressive therapy, what their deal was. I've asked I've asked 2 of them, 2 out of the 3. The other third, my ex-best friend, she's one of those people, doesn't want, after that night, and me crying to my dad at 19 years old to fly us back right away. And that's what he did. And she had to borrow, because she was like on her own. She had to borrow from my dad a plane ticket to get us back. That's how freaked out we were. So, she talked to me about it after that night and all the way up until I think it took like 3 days for us to turn around and get out of there. Wow. So she talked about it, but not since.
You've mentioned this a couple times. Can you tell us what healing elements is?
Yes, healing elements is just me. It is what I like to do. And so I don't kind of pin it down to one specific modality. I do card readings. So I do oracle card readings. I do vibrational medicine. I did get certificated in Reiki, but I feel that there is a lot of benefit in shamanic and other type of healing with energy that is transferred from, the field around you into somebody else, and yourself. Helped me a lot. So I try to help people. I also, in the last couple 2-3 years have been really getting into different, ancient wisdom, like spirit animals. I'm fascinated about that. Fascinated, obviously, about near-death experiences and that transcendental moment that gets someone to a point, so I help people that are experiencing that by giving them readings and, being a conduit for spirit, and also my own advice going into it, letting them know that they're not crazy, first of all, and that if they are worried, if they're depressed, if they're anxious, it's not anything that is new, and it's not something to be stigmatized. So I try to get rid of the stigma. Also, what you said, I think, is part of my healing journey. Not being a decision maker for people, but if they are wondering, curious if there's something wrong with them, or if they, just don't understand certain experiences, then I will explain to them from kind of like just a fellow soul traveler. You know what I mean? Just being there to not dictate, but to be a conduit and to help heal and soothe what woes people, because that has always been my nature. But now I think that I've had the skills, and I built my self-worth enough to know that it's valid, that people will appreciate it. So that's what I do. I also have, of course, platform on YouTube. So I, think that for anybody who can't pay for a reading, I put out different type of testimonials, like about the UFO and the dream with Jesus. And then, of course, spirit animals seem to be really popular lately. Videos about information about anything spiritual, so that people can, enjoy it, and it lets me vent. So I do that, and on Instagram. So that's what Healing Elements is all about.
Is your YouTube channel called Healing Elements?
It is. I got that URL, thank goodness. So it's .youtube.com/healingelements. So you guys can look me up on there. But I'm really proud of it. It makes me happy. It's a platform that I enjoy connecting with people.
If people want to reach out to you and ask you questions or chit chat, how should they do that if you're open to it?
Very open to it. I love communicating. I hope I haven't talked too much in this interview. I just really do love the correspondence. So email, you can put comments, of course, contact me through comments on YouTube, but I would love to hear from anybody. My email address is Pisces, Pisces, healingelements@gmail.com. So pisceshealingelements@gmail.com. I also am on Instagram if anyone does that. I don't know how long I'm going to go on with that. I figured, my daughter said it was just a good way in 2017 to connect with other people. But if they like, I'm still on there. It's Healing Elements 1111. So it's at Healing Elements 1111. You can direct message me there. I enjoy any kind of correspondence. I'm always, just thrilled and surprised at what I learn from each different individual. And I'll just plug and say thank you once again. I was compelled and called to reach out to, over the last 2 years I've been watching, I think it's been that long, two beautiful guests, and I've connected with them on different points that I find, just really similar. Just a guest a couple days ago, Megan Leone, was similar to me because I used to be for 10 years an instructional aide for special needs, and I have witnessed and not been able to talk to anybody about the connectivity between spirit and special needs. And also Brittany Hartman. She was amazing guest of yours, and we've been friends, and I have her onto my channel for like Brittany and Shanny sipping tea. So it's been a pleasure to to see you in such a beautiful place in which you're giving people a voice to be diverse too with their stories. Like you have anywhere from Christians that are, definitely conservative to people who say they have babies with, aliens. So I appreciate that. It's like a beautiful thing. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Shanny, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Yes. What everyone that has had this beautiful divine experience says is true. Love is the answer. Love is the soothing balm for so much. And I know that it is tough to love when we are hurt. It's tough to love when we are grieving. But the essence of love is such an innate healer, and it allows us to do so much more for ourselves and those around us. So if you need any love, not going to charge you, you just please reach out to me, and I will remind you about things that, even though our world might be going crazy, or if that's your perception, there is love out there. I am sending you love through this voice right now, right here, to Jeff, your family. I'm sending everybody love, and love is the answer. Simple but true.
Thanks for that message, Shanny, and thank you for being my guest today. I appreciate you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much, Jeff.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.